It feels very much like a jointly owned and operated startup. We consider each other to be colleagues, and we're all very heavily invested in the success of the IAT-D because we've co-created it and we need it to succeed. And so from my perspective, and I think I speak equally of all the partners, we're more than partners, we're a team.
Hello and welcome to the Strategic Partnerships podcast series. My name is Balzhano Razbaeva, Manager Strategic Initiatives at UIN, and I'm your host for today. Join us as we delve into this dynamic collaboration between TAFE, Macquarie University, UTS, Microsoft, and many more. Hear from Yasminka Nemet, Future Skills Lead at Microsoft, and Matt Crocker, Strategic Advisor at University of Technology, Sydney, as they share insights into creating this cutting-edge institute aimed at nurturing digital talent. It's my pleasure to welcome our wonderful speakers joining me, Yasminka Nemet from Microsoft and Matt Crocker, University of Technology, Sydney, as we will be diving into the innovative collaboration behind the creation of the Institute of Applied Technology Digital. That is a partnership between TAFE, Macquarie University, UTS, Microsoft, and many more interesting organizations. So very exciting to learn about how you create this new generation of digital talent. So thank you for joining me. Let's just dive right into it. Yasminka, I would like to start with you in your role as a future skills and lead at Microsoft. I wonder if you could tell me more about the journey of establishing of the Institute of Applied Technology Digital and the key motivations behind it.
That is a great way to start the conversation. Thank you, Balzan. It's great to be here with you and all your members. Just a little bit about my role before I dive in. Future Skills Lead for Microsoft Australia and New Zealand. And in this role, I work on strategic partnerships and initiatives across K-12, vocational education and higher education, really designed to help close the digital skills gap. Microsoft is really committed to ensuring everyone has the opportunity to participate equally in the digital economy. And my work supports that commitment along with other amazing colleagues around the world and through our networks, including Matt, who we're going to hear from shortly as well from UTS. But look, in answer to the question about the journey, as I was thinking through my response to this, I just was reflecting on what an amazing journey it's been, how much we've accomplished together in such a short time with so much complexity. But look, it started 3 years ago when the New South Wales Government of Australia decided to fund a 4-year pilot to create a new education. And the goal was to combine the best of vocational education and training and higher education and industry to solve critical skills gaps. And at that time, the two areas that were earmarked were digital technology and construction. And so we actually now have two IATs, one focusing on digital tech, but we're only going to talk about that one today. But there is another one on construction if you care to dive in at some point. So with that, the IAT-D was officially resourced, which was, of course, just the beginning. And then we had to do all the actual work of pulling the IAT-D together and discovered in our first meeting that there was no guidebook. There was no playbook for how we were going to do this together. So after a little bit of back and forth, we started, I think, in the right place, which is define our mutual why. And that set the foundation for the partnership and determined a lot of the how actually that followed. And we kept coming back to our mutual purpose over time, which really is to create, there was a joint desire to create more opportunity for people to participate fully in the digital economy, particularly women who we know are underrepresented. And in New South Wales alone, we need 85,000 more workers in ICT roles by 2030, and our existing education models aren't really keeping up with the demand for that talent. So we need a lot of creativity and new thinking to close this gap. So that's the why, right? That was just incredibly important for us to agree and align on. And once we did that, we spent the next 12 months co-creating the education model, the collaboration principles, governance, ways of working together, the product standard, the delivery model, the brand identity, and everything you can imagine in setting up a new institution. And of course, the first courses, we also needed to create a product. And through all of that, the result is It feels very much like a jointly owned and operated startup. We consider each other to be colleagues, and we're all very heavily invested in the success of the IAT-D because we've co-created it and we need it to succeed. And so from my perspective, and I think I speak equally of all the partners, we're more than partners, we're a team. We have joint aspirations and we have joint KPIs to match those aspirations as well.
Thank you, Yasminka. I'm so glad that you actually drew this journey for us of how this all came together. Especially, I couldn't relate more to the notion of being actually the team and the family standing behind the collaborative endeavor, because it's not just a partnership, so to say. It's actually a very well-functioned initiative which is very humbling to hear. It's only started 3 years ago. So congratulations on your success. And I can't wait to dive deeper as we will go through this conversation. And on the partnership bit, Matt, actually, I would like to ask you a question in your role as a strategic advisor to University of Technology, Sydney, and with UTS actually playing quite an important role in this partnership. I am curious to hear about the partnership itself, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more how this collaboration between TAFE, Macquarie University, UTS, Microsoft, and I know there are some other industry partners that are involved, actually came about, and what were the key principles of collaboration that were followed? Because I just heard from Yasminka that there were no guidelines, no playbook, so you practically created it yourself. So very, very curious to hear about that.
Thanks, Balzan, and thanks, Yasminka, for that terrific introduction to the IAT overall. My role at UTS, I'm a strategic advisor, really focused on our relationships with TAFE and the vet sector and strategic initiatives that we can do in that space, because we think it's important for the kind of strategic future of the university. This was right on strategy for us and something that we really wanted to be involved in from really the very early stages of the original government review and investment in the IAT to begin with. And I suppose the first and most important point to make in terms of how we set up the partnership to begin with is that it was a competitive process. The New South Wales government had invested in a building, they'd conducted the review that set out the framework, but we had to bid to be part of it. We had to want to be there. They asked for proposals. We put our best foot forward and made the case for the vision that we had in bringing together industry, vet, and university education, and others did the same thing. So the good thing was that there was already a good working relationship between UTS and Microsoft, UTS and TAFE, UTS and Macquarie, and all the other partners with each other. So we all knew each other, but we'd never really collaborated at this scale and this deeply before. So that was the first point. We all wanted to be there, and we all made the decision to really say this was something that we wanted to do. The other point was that it was not winner takes all. It could have been that there could have just been one university partner, but we had two. So we work really closely with Macquarie as equal partners in the education model, along with TAFE and along with Microsoft, and that was useful for the collaborations. There was a really inclusive collaborative model. We had people around the table, and from the beginning, even on the industry partnership side of things, there was always a vision that it wasn't just a Microsoft partnership from the industry side, but that we wanted to bring other industry partners in as well, because we had this sense that we needed everybody on board to make a difference here, and it's a credit to Microsoft that they were as willing as they were to do that through the process. In terms of the principles of collaboration, we made sure that we collaborated from the beginning. So from the very first day, we made sure we were working together, as Yaz said, as a team. We were jointly solving problems together. We were really listening and working with each other. And we were bringing our aspiration on each side to really do something different and new. Because we were committed to the vision and the idea of the IAT in the first place, that aspiration that we all had just pushed us a little bit further to do something which was better and something that hadn't been done before. So they were the kind of the structural principles around how we started, and it seems to have worked for us.
That sounds wonderful. I think establishing this why and the vision right from the beginning and understanding what brings all those partners together is key when it comes to collaborating, especially in such a complex environment with so many stakeholders involved. So it's great to hear, which then now brings me to maybe more product side of things, because I would be also keen to hear more about what kind of unique features and opportunities does the Institute offer to learners and students, and particularly in terms of perhaps industry involvement, any practical experiences that they can get from it, or practical skills most, but also, of course, having involved so many educational institutions also would like to talk about academic excellence as well, and anything that on digital literacy. Yasminka, maybe you would like to take that question?
There's a lot packed in there, but I'll try. So look, we spent months and months asking these same questions of ourselves when we were putting a model together, because our intention was not to replicate what was already in the market. That was really important to all of the partners, but actually to create something that was very complementary to vocational education and higher education. But look, I'm going to focus on three things that I think we did to create distinct value for learners, and ultimately we hope for employers as well. The first is we really created Australia's first stackable micro-credentials model, which allows learners to, and we coined this phrase internally, to start where they are, right? To be able to upskill, reskill, exit to an entry-level role, or continue to study with our education partners, creating a very flexible, agile experience that can fit in and around the lives of learners, which is difficult for existing models to do, right? And so we had an opportunity to design something that could fulfill that need. So that's the first thing. The second is I just want to call out the actual co-creation process, because that in and of itself is an innovation in the IAT-D. Our Microsoft subject matter experts and now across the other industry partners meet weekly with academics to discuss and debate and review and contribute to content. And I'm not aware of a collaboration that is that deep, or a co-creation process that is that deep in education in any other of the partnerships that we have or that I've heard about. And aside from learners getting the benefit of that joint thinking, we're actually able to move very quickly together and say, for example, if there is an innovation like generative AI, we're able to bring that to market very quickly, which we did. We launched 2 courses within months that have been very popular to help people understand what generative AI is and what that opportunity is. And the third one is really around featuring industry experts and experiences throughout the learning journey, so that, and again, this was a very intentional design element, but we want learners to feel that persistent presence of industry all around them, to be able to bring knowledge and theory to life. And very quickly, one of the highlights of that is we have a physical cyber range that we've created that's paired with a physical model city, which we've named Anytown, and it actually simulates attacks on critical infrastructure, and learners can see both the impact of an attack and also the impact of their own interventions. And that, along with the ability for learners to complete Microsoft certifications and other industry certifications, really does bring that industry element to life for the learners. And we're not done. We're only a year into this delivery, and we're still thinking deeply about how we bring more and more of those industry perspectives in, including some more work integrated learning experiences, mentorship programs. It's all on the cards because we are a pilot, we are experimenting, and so we can afford to try new things with the goal of creating lots and lots of learnings for our whole sector at large.
And maybe just to reinforce that point about the certification and the credential, because I think that's one of the really interesting things here. Because we were really student-led, we thought, what do students want from an upskilling and reskilling perspective? And having something that allowed you to get a Microsoft certification and a credential from UTS or Macquarie or TAFE was a really attractive package for learners. And it was one of those things where you got something which employers would value, and the students themselves would see the value in the package as it came together.
It sounds like you've really listened to what the user needs and wants, and especially in this whole context of how to make lifelong learning actually work for learners. I think that is a big question. At least we are very much challenged with this one here in Europe. So it's humbling to hear about your experiences in Australia. But that is such a complex topic. I think it also has a lot to do with some of the inclusivity aspects. How can we make sure that this offer actually reaches all of the target audience, which in your case, I can imagine that can be anyone. And Yasminka, you also mentioned women, for example, at the beginning, or I can imagine that there will be some other groups as well that you're trying to reach, having involved also vet institutions and higher education institutions. So it's not only students, it's not only learners, it's also lifelong learners. So I guess the question that I would like to bring forward would actually be on that. And I'm very curious to hear about how you've been addressing the challenge of diversity and inclusivity in the digital talent pool. Do you have any strategies? Do you have any kinds of interventions that you would like to use to attract and support underrepresented groups?
Yeah, maybe I'll take that question. And I think firstly we should start off by saying that it's critical. We're facing a massive skill shortage in the digital workforce, and it's not going to be addressed by just attracting the same workers that we always have. Both it's the right thing to do, but it's also a business and a public policy imperative to make sure that we're actually really attracting a diverse and inclusive student population into the IAT-D. We're proud of the outcomes. It's not quite 50-50 on gender, but we're around, I think the last cohort was about 45%, and we're a touch over 40% overall female, which is much improved on comparable offerings. And I think the key to that is about making sure that we have an attractive but accessible product. So we're rigorous on the content and focused on real employment outcomes, particularly in that upskilling and reskilling space, where you can do one of our courses to fill that gap to do your job better, or to get to the next role in your organisation or that next job in a different organisation. But also we have a really flexible approach to course timing and locations. We do it out of traditional hours, we do it online, and that works for people with busy lives. And we're also we're doing more with high potential cohorts. So women coming back to the workforce is one really good example. We're offering a targeted cadetship program for that group. And more broadly, we're tracking our performance to make sure that we do get that diversity and inclusion in the people that we're attracting. And we'll measure that, and we'll iterate and change what we do to make sure we're getting the right groups through. Whether that's Indigenous people with a disability, people with English as a second language, and really thinking about the barriers faced and looking at what are the practical steps we can make to make a difference on it.
It's a very impressive portfolio of not only different ways you provide the learning, starting with micro-credentials and also having those personalized journeys, an opportunity to create one, also the way you address the different groups. It sounds like within 3 years, a lot has been achieved. So Yasminka, maybe you can also walk us through some of the outcomes and already potential impact of the model so far, because I think it would be very interesting for our listeners to hear also how, for example, the situation is right now with some of the enrollment numbers, satisfaction rates. So how do you measure the success, so to say?
Yeah, so just to clarify, our doors have been open for just over 12 months. The first 12 months were spent in development. And so over that time, we've had several tens of thousands of enrollments, and I'll let you do the math on that because we're not sharing numbers, but there's very, very strong demand. Particularly we have a product that comes before a micro-credential, which is called a micro-skill, where, we're offering around 5 to 10 hours of learning, again, with that hope of encouraging people who don't have any experience in tech at all to be able to make this very accessible for them. And those are incredibly popular and are a wonderful entry point to a larger commitment, which is a micro-credential of around 35 to 40 hours. Our typical learner right now is 30 to 45 years of age, looking to upskill, but we are seeing an increasing number of learners coming to us with the intention of reskilling into a tech role. And that really is going to be a big focus for us over the next 2 years, because to Matt's point, if we're just churning the people that we have, we won't close that 85,000 worker gap. And so we've got to get really creative around how are we going to ensure that this experience is supportive of reskilling. And that is a much more challenging proposition than just upskilling, which is hard enough in and of itself to create time for most adult learners. But when you think about people who are already in work aspiring to change their profession, that is a much, much bigger commitment. But we are starting to see those people recognise the IAT-D as the place where they can go on that journey without going into a lot of debt, and doing that more or less at their own pace. And we are also seeing very high rates of learner satisfaction and referrals, and particularly around the quality of our teachers who are coming from our education partners of TAFE New South Wales, Macquarie and UTS, and also of our operations team, which the day-to-day operation is really in the hands of TAFE New South Wales, who are doing just a fantastic job of staying in touch with learners. So we do a lot of surveying. We get a lot of feedback, both qualitative and quantitative, about what's going on in their experience, and we're taking all of that and making tweaks along the way. Another very quick benefit of this micro-credentials model is 8-week rolling enrolment. So we actually can adjust where we need to, where we see that we can make an improvement to the experience. We are actually able to do that on a more frequent basis. And so I think in terms of satisfaction, that's definitely playing to our strengths, because if we are receiving feedback that something can be improved, we can make that change pretty quickly, and then we see that in the survey results.
Wonderful. Can we maybe speak also about the success factors that have contributed to the recognition of the model of IAT-D as an innovative model of cross-sector collaboration and multi-stakeholder collaboration, and how have specifically industry partners, including Microsoft and others, played a crucial role in its implementation? We have lots of universities tuning in through UIN community, so I think it would be very good to cover that bit as well. So Matt, maybe you would like to take that one?
Why don't I take the first part, and then I'll let Yaz talk about the industry side of it. And I guess the first point I'd make is it's taken a lot of effort. It's a big commitment to make the collaboration work, and it's something that you don't often see. So Yasminka and myself and the other partners at the IAT-D have been meeting on a more than weekly basis for 3 years now, but we were prepared to put in the effort because we had that shared commitment to the vision, and we saw the problem and wanted to really make a dent in it. We've developed and refined the model and the offering over time, and we're always looking to learn it and improve it as it goes. So that kind of sense of continuous improvement has been a really big part of how we've thought about things, because we started with a blank sheet of paper. So we tried things, we tested what would work, we tested what was going to be in the interest of the student, and that's what drove it. And then we really put the student first. So that kind of sense of what do they want, what do they need to be successful. This idea of mixing the Microsoft certification with the university micro-credential is a really good example of that, and found the things which were appealing to the students. Yaz, you'll have a view from the industry side of things.
Yeah, look, from our perspective, I think a critical success factor has just been commitment by our leadership to support this model, to support our participation, to support people spending time on this in addition to their day jobs, right? So this is all additional work that we do because we believe in the mission. And so having that high level organizational focus and support is absolutely critical. And then finding those allies inside our organisation who are passionate about education from an industry perspective. I think you'd be surprised when you start scratching beneath the surface. Yes, we are commercial, but we absolutely are driven by a higher mission. And for example, at Microsoft, I've been able to find scores of people who want to be part of this, who want to continue to drive success either through mentorship or through advice or providing videos. It does at this point very much feel like it might have started as an interesting concept that Microsoft was involved in. Everybody knows what the IAT-D is inside of Microsoft Australia and New Zealand now, and that is continuing to feed our participation and willingness to continue to innovate and also bring other industry partners along the journey, which Matt mentioned before. This is not just about Microsoft. This is about all of us. It's about the whole sector and having to solve this much larger problem. And so Microsoft also spends a lot of time advocating for additional industry participation and just that general sort of involvement and engagement is absolutely critical and needs to be factored in upfront, I think, for something like this to be successful.
Thank you so much. On this note, unfortunately, time flies. We would have to stop here, but thank you so much, Matt and Yasminka, for joining me. It was extremely insightful to learn about your journey so far, and I wish you a lot of success for the future as well, because it sounds like it's a lot coming your way and there are so many ambitions that you would like to turn into reality. So it was great to learn from your example, and I'm sure our listeners feel the same. So again, thanks Matt and Yasminka for joining me. I look forward to staying in touch and learning more about your journey.
Thanks, Balzan.
Thanks, Balzan. Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you for listening to today's discussion. Follow UIN on LinkedIn, and if you are enjoying our podcast, make sure to subscribe, rate and review in your podcast platform of choice to help other people find this content too.